Om Namo Narayana. Srimad Bhagavatam Mahapurana. Pratham Skandha. Atha Panchamo Adhyayah. Book 1. Discourse 5. Glory of singing the Lord's praises and an account of Devarshi Narada's previous life. Sutta says, when comfortably seated, lute in hand, the celestial sage Narada, of extensive renown, spoke to the Brahmana sage Veda Vyas, who sat beside him as if smiling at his disconsolation. Narada said, Most blessed Vyasa, son of Parashara, I hope your physical self as well as your mental self are satisfied in themselves. I am sure all that you wanted to know has been fully realized, since you produced the most wonderful Mahabharata, which fully deals with all the objects of human pursuit, dharma, etc. You have also investigated the truth of and realized the eternal Brahma, the Absolute. Nevertheless, my lord, you bewail your lot as if you had not yet realized the object of your life. Vyasa replied, All that you have said about me is true, yet my soul finds no satisfaction. We ask you the cause of it, which is unknown to me, since your knowledge is unfathomable, you being a son of Brahma, the self-born. You know all hidden truths, inasmuch as you have worshipped the most ancient person who is the ruler of both Prakriti and Purusha, that is, the matter and spirit, and who by his very thought creates, sustains, and reabsorbs the universe with the help of the three gunas, though remaining unattached to the same. You go about all the three worlds, even as the sun does, and moving within all like the vital air, by dint of yogic power, you can read the minds of all. Even though I have fully realized through the practice of yoga and the observance of sacred vows, both the Supreme Brahma, the Absolute, and Brahma in the form of the Vedas, pray, point out to me my great deficiency. Narada replied, You have failed to sing adequately the stainless glory of the Lord. I consider that wisdom to be deficient, which does not tend to please the Lord. O chief of sages, you have not so fully described the glory of Bhagavan Vasudeva as you have dealt with the objects of human pursuit such as dharma, etc. Speech, which though full of figurative expressions, never utters the praises of Sri Hari, the praises that possess the virtue of sanctifying the whole world, is considered to be the delight of voluptuous men, who wallow in the pleasures of sense, like crows that feed upon the dirty leavings of food. Like swans that are traditionally believed to have their abode in the lotus beds of the Mansarovar lake, devotees who have taken shelter in the lotus feet of the Lord and therefore ever abide in his heart, never take delight in such speech. On the other hand, that composition which, though faulty in diction, consists of verses each of which contain the names of the immortal Lord, bearing the impress of his glory, wipes out the sins of the people. It is such composition that pious men love to hear, sing, and repeat to an audience. That wisdom too, which is free from blemish and is a direct means to the attainment of liberation, does not adorn one's soul so much if it is devoid of devotion to Lord Achyuta. How then can action with an interested motive, which is rooted in sorrow at every stage, both while it is being performed and at the time of its fruition, and even disinterested action that has not been dedicated to God, serve to heighten one's glory, endowed with an unfailing eye, and possessed of sacred renown, O highly blessed Vyasa, you are devoted to truth and steadfast of resolve. Therefore, with a concentrated mind, now recall the exploits of Sri Hari, who wields unthinkable power with a view to the liberation of the entire humanity. The man who desires to talk of anything else than the Lord's exploits falls into the trap of the manifold names and forms evolved by such desire and sees diversity everywhere. Like a boat beaten by a blast, his unsteady mind finds no rest anywhere. It was a great error on your part to have enjoined horrible acts involving destruction of life in the name of religion, on men who are naturally addicted to such acts. Misguided by these precepts of yours, the ordinary men of the world would believe such acts to be pious and would refuse to honor the teachings that prohibit such actions. Only some wise man can, by withdrawing from worldly enjoyments, experience the supreme bliss which forms the essential character of the eternal and infinite Lord. Therefore, kindly narrate the exploits of the Lord for the good of those who are working under the impulse of the three gunas, that is, the modes of Prakriti, and lack the spiritual sense. Has evil ever befallen him anywhere, in any womb or birth, who adores the lotus feet of Sri Hari, neglecting his own duty, even if he dies at a stage when he is yet unripe in his devotion, or falls from his sadhana? On the other hand, what purpose has been achieved by those who fail to worship God through devotion to their duty? A wise man should strive after that object alone, which cannot be attained by going round from the highest Brahma's abode to the lowest infernal regions. As for the pleasures of sense, they are had as a matter of course everywhere, like sorrow, as a result of past actions by flux of time, which is too quick to be perceived. Dear Vyasa, a servant of Lord Mukunda, literally the bestower of liberation, never returns to this world, consisting of birth and death, like others, that is, the men of action, who are averse to the Lord's worship. Even if by accident he turns averse to him at any time. Recalling the joy of having once mentally embraced the Lord's lotus feet, he would not think of abandoning them, since he has tasted their sweetness. This universe is no other than the Lord, who is yet apart from it, being responsible for the continuance, destruction, and coming into being of this world. You know it yourself, yet I have indicated it to you by way of a hint. O Vyasa of unfailing vision, know it for yourself that you are a ray of the highest person, the Supreme Spirit, and that, though unborn, you have taken birth for the good of the world. Therefore, describe at full length the exploits of the Lord of exalted glory. The wise have declared that the abiding purpose of man's austere penance, sacred knowledge, sacrificial performances, recitation of the Vedas with correct intonation, enlightenment, and bestowal of gifts is to recount the virtues of that Lord of excellent fame. During the last kalpa, in my previous existence, O sage, I was born of a maidservant of Brahmanas well versed in the Vedas. While yet a boy, I was told off to serve some yogis, wandering ascetics who wished to stop at one place during the rains. Though a mere child, I was free from all childish frolics, was quite tame and submissive, spoke little, and remained aloof from playthings. Though viewing all alike, the sages were particularly kind to me, who did all kinds of service to them. With the willing consent of those Brahmanas, I ate once in every 24 hours, whatever was left in their dishes after they had finished their meals, and was thereby cleansed of all sins. Thus engaged in their service, I attained purity of mind, which conceived a liking for the religious creed, the creed of devotion. There, in that society of godly men, by the grace of those saints who were given to singing the Lord's praises, I would daily listen to the soul-ravishing stories of Sri Krishna. Even as I heard these stories with reverence, O dear Vyasa, step by step I developed an attraction for the Lord of delightful fame. When I developed an affinity for him, O great sage, my mind got firmly established in that Lord of delightful glory. Through such a mind, I began to perceive the whole of this gross and subtle world as assumed in me, the Absolute by Maya. In this way, throughout the rains as well as in the coming autumn, I heard with rapt attention thrice every day the holy praises of Sri Hari as they were sung by those high-souled sages, and forthwith sprouted in my heart that devotion which eradicates the element of rajas or passion and tamas or ignorance. To me, who was devoted to those sages, modest in bearing, sinless, full of faith, tame and submissive, though yet a child, those saints, compassionate as they were to the afflicted, graciously imparted, when about to depart, that most esoteric wisdom which has been directly revealed by the Lord Himself. Through that wisdom, I came to know the glory of that Maya, the deluding potency of Lord Vasudeva, the maker of this world, by knowing which men attain to his supreme abode. O sage, I have thus indicated to you how actions dedicated to the Lord, who is the ruler of this universe, as well as the Supreme Brahma, the Absolute, serve as the cure for the threefold agony. O Vyasa of commendable woe, the same substance which contributes to a particular malady cannot ordinarily counteract the disease, but when taken in a properly medicated form, it does cure the ailment. Similarly, all the activities of men ordinarily lead to transmigration, but the same, when offered to the Lord, lose their binding character. On duties of an obligatory nature that are performed in this world For the pleasure of the Lord depends the attainment of wisdom combined with devotion. Those who perform their actions in obedience to the Lord's behests repeatedly utter and meditate on the praises and names of Sri Krishna in the course of such actions. Obeisance to you, O Lord Vasudeva, we meditate on you. Obeisance also to Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Shankarshana. The Lord, presiding over sacrifices, has the divine mantra for his body and has no material form. He alone is of true insight, who worships him, uttering the name of the four forms as indicated above. O holy Brahmana, when I had thus carried out his behest, Lord Keshava blessed me with self-knowledge, mystic powers, and loving devotion to his feet. O sage of unlimited knowledge, pray, recount the glories of the Almighty Lord, by hearing which even the wise reach the end of their quest for knowledge. For they recognize only the chanting of such glory and no other as the only means of relieving the afflictions of those who are repeatedly tormented by trials and turmoils. Thus ends the fifth discourse, forming part of the dialogue between Vyasa and Narada in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahamsa Samhita. Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu.